All right, let's get started. Good afternoon, security pros, and thank you for joining us today on ESX's webinar series. Unified 3D LiDAR monitoring is a reliable, fully integrated solution to restricted security area surveillance. In today's webinar, we'll be joined by experts from Quanergy and Genetec to learn how a LiDAR-based RSA solution can significantly reduce false alarms, save time and cost, and help you achieve higher levels of security while protecting individual privacy. I'm Merlin Gilbo, CEO of the Electronic Security Association, and I'm excited to lead this ESX webinar today. Before we dive in, I'd like to provide some tips for those of you joining us for your first ESX webinar. I'd like to remind you, first off, that if you're a leader from your company looking for sales and leadership advice, the ESA Leadership Summit will kick off in just 2 weeks at the Dallas Cowboys World Headquarters in Frisco, Texas. This executive level education and networking event is where the industry's brightest minds take their teams to the next level. We'll talk change management, team motivation, and sales strategies, plus a whole lot more. Both in-person and virtual passes are still available, and you can head over to esasummit.com for more information. You'll be muted for the duration of this session, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. If you have a question or comment that comes to mind at any point during today's webinar, click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, and I'll ensure we save some time for your questions with our experts. We'll be also recording today's webinar, so you can rewatch the on-demand session and share it with your colleagues. Tomorrow, you will receive an email thanking you for your attendance, along with a link to today's recording. We at ESA realize your time is valuable, and we appreciate you spending some of that time with us today. So let's jump in and meet our speakers. First, we have Gerald Becker. Gerald is the Vice President of Market Development and Alliances for Quanergy. He's a veteran security professional and technology evangelist with over 17 years of experience in physical security. Becker previously worked as the Senior Director of Sales and Business Development for AI and computer vision applications at Safer by Real Networks. He has a strong foundation in the systems integration world, which stems from a 7-year tenure with a national systems integrator firm for which he was the VP of Security. We also have Cheryl Stewart. Cheryl is the Industry and Applications Market Analysis for Genetec. She joined Genetec in 2019 as an Industry and Applications Specialist, Marketing Specialist, focusing on airports. Her role now includes the entire critical infrastructure vertical as a whole. Her main responsibilities include developing go-to-market strategies that include conducting market research and analysis to better understand the needs of critical infrastructure in users across the globe. She has more than 4 years of experience in business analysis and customer service in the aviation industry. So I'm going to turn it over to Gerald, and let's dive in.
Thanks, Merlin. I appreciate that. Look forward to presenting to everybody on the line today. We've got something special to show you all. For some of you, LiDAR may be a new technology, and it is new technology, definitely emerging tech, and quite a few cool applications and use cases that we've been able to develop in cooperation with our partner Genetec that I'm going to show you guys here in a little bit. For the topics of today, we will be discussing a little bit of LiDAR tech in 101, just so you guys get a base understanding of what LiDAR is and how it can be applied in the security markets. We'll talk about applications and analytics. And then we'll give it over to Cheryl so that she can go through the differences with RSA and what we can do with a fully unified platform. Then we'll go ahead and bring this back around and talk about the total cost of ownership, the TCO, which is very important to understand the value that this solution brings together to be able to provide to your end users, your customers, and giving them a new alternative technology that provides highly accurate, great alarming IoT device solution for your customers out there. And then we'll go ahead and finalize with some Q&A towards the end. So first and foremost, a little bit about Quanergy before we dive in. We were founded in 2012. We are a US-based company based out of Sunnyvale. Our solutions are NDAA compliant. And not only do we manufacture hardware, but we also develop the software, which is what we call perception. So think of perception like a video analytic to a camera. Perception is our analytic to our LiDAR sensor. At Quanergy, we truly are looking to democratize the use of LiDAR to increase productivity, efficiency, and safety in our 3D world. I'll go into a little bit deeper into that. So, albeit we have several focuses at Quanergy, such as the autonomous world, the ADAS AV, mobile robotics, industrial IoT, I have a strong focus. In fact, I lead the flow management side of the business as far as alliances go and business development for our organization. So anything under smart cities, smart spaces, and security, which we found a tremendous amount of use cases using LiDAR. There's some unique things about LiDAR that is much different than your typical IoT sensors. And I'm talking about radar, beam cross, cameras, so on and so forth. LiDAR allows you to see in 3D. It does 3D object detection, tracking, and classification. It also does 3D position, speed, and motion. And another thing that's very unique about our solution is that we're able to fuse our sensors together in a large open environment to create a mesh network of LiDAR, if you will. Other things you could do with our sensors that's very unique to us is that we've been able to integrate directly into cameras in those one-off situations when it needs to be off the network or whatever it may be. But we prefer, obviously, the deep integration that we're able to do, such as the case with Security Center, where we can actually do the PTZ camera control. And then you get the event to action workflow that you do with Security Center. Automated ID handover is something that's also unique with our solution. So when you fuse multiple sensors in an environment and a person walks through the visibility of one sensor, but is no longer covered with that sensor anymore, but there is overlap with the other sensor, we automatically hand over the ID from one sensor to the other. So we know John Doe 001 is still John Doe 001 when he's in the field of view of the next sensor. So a couple things to also understand is that we have a couple sensors here. We have a mechanical sensor and we have a solid state sensor. For the purpose of the discussion today, we're going to be honing in on the mechanical sensor and I'll talk a little bit further on that. So LiDAR 101, how does this all work? How does it all come together? So our sensor, this is the mechanical sensor, has a stack of lasers inside, about 8 lasers, and it's spinning really fast, about 5 to 20 hertz per second. So what's happening is it's spinning in circles. The lasers are shooting out into an open space. And when the lasers hit an object, it bounces back to the sensor. And we use time of flight as a unit of measurement. We know that light is constant and we're able to measure light as far as when it hits an object, it comes back. So when it hits an object, it creates a point. We reference that as the point cloud as far as LiDAR talk goes. Now, the analogy I like to give that's very easy to understand is that if you're a fan of the movie The Matrix, when Neo starts to see the ones and zeros drop from the sky and he sees the world for a digital space and what it is in that movie, that's exactly what LiDAR sees. We see everything in points. So we're able to see silhouettes of people, objects, unclassified objects, vehicles, whatever it may be. And we're able to see that in real time in 3D. We're able to move that around from different perspectives, different angles, from the top, from the bottom. It's something that you've just never been able to do. Kind of similar to a fisheye camera, but so much more. Now, as far as once we're actually able to see objects in the field of view, we then classify them as people, vehicles, get direction, get speed of motion. And that's where the art of the possible comes in, where we push that directly into Genetec's platform to be able to provide all kinds of different workflows. And we're going to be honing in onto RSA today because that's one of the key use cases with our sensors, doing large PID, perimeter intrusion detection applications to track large open air environments. Now, one of the most important things on the bottom of that slide right there is that yellow-orange bar, is that we do this with 0 PII risk. There's no personal identifiable information that's displayed with our sensor. We just don't know who Jane Doe, John Doe is. We can't tell male or female, and we don't know ethnicity. So We just don't see like a camera does, and we don't read biometrics like computer vision does in that sense. So just so you guys see what LiDAR looks like in action. The bottom right-hand corner is a typical camera mounted inside of a vehicle. And the bigger screen is what our LiDAR sees. Now, unlike a camera that can only see what's in front of it as far as what the optics can see, with our LiDAR sensor, in our perception software, once again, it's that analytic component, you can actually zoom in, turn this around, look at it from different vantage points to understand what may be going on the top of the building, down the street, down the hall, whatever it may be. It's just a whole new perspective you've never been able to do with other sensors before. In fact, just so you guys get a frame of reference, this is me in my office right here. This is me looking at my two screens in front of me. This is a top-down view. I'm going to be doing jumping jacks here in my chair, so you can see I'm moving around. But this is where it gets interesting. I can then flip this on its side. I can then move this around in 3D perspectives. I can look at it from the top, from the bottom, from different vantage points that you've just never been able to do with other sensors before. In this same environment, I could create multiple object zones that create alarm events that get pushed directly into the RSA plugin, which Cheryl will be talking about earlier, a little bit later. So our MSeries family of sensors made for wide, large, open environments. We could do up to 200 meters in max range. With our perception software, we're able to accurately detect, track, and classify at 70 meters. And then in diameter, we'll be able to do about 140 in total. So this sensor is great for large open environments when you need to fuse multiple sensors in trying to capture a big open area. Now, this comes in various flavors. Now, our sensors are IP69K rated. They're indoor, they're outdoor rated as well. PoE plus, so there's a tremendous amount of flexibility with our sensors and being able to deploy. Now let's talk about architecture, just so you understand how this is deployed. Our mechanical sensors need perception, which is our analytic software. It's a computer vision application. This runs in an Ubuntu instance. This does not require GPU. We're actually a CPU-based architecture. So you actually do quite a few sensors on CPU. You can do about 7 sensors on the i7. You scale this horizontally. So if you add additional sensors, add additional compute, and you can virtualize this environment. So as you continue to scale, and there's a very large deployment, just add more compute, and you'll be able to accommodate the amount of sensors you require. From there, we then push the zone list, object list, and state list, which is basically the metadata that's captured from our sensors directly into Genetec via 3 different plugins. Today, we'll be talking about RSA. RSA plugin gets the object list, the zone list, and the state list to be able to create the event to action notifications that you're commonly used to inside Security Center. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about comparisons on different sensing technologies. I'm going to hone in mostly on other technologies outside of camera. We work very well with cameras. In fact, we complement cameras very well. But I will talk about how other technologies compare in this regard. Sensing, we are able to see in 3D, as I showed you all just momentarily. As far as range goes, we do full 360. But unlike other LiDAR in the industry, I know that there's other LiDAR options. We see in 3D. We got large range, but unlike other LiDAR that's in the industry that come in 2D flavors that only see a horizontal or potentially vertical, depending on how you mount the sensor, we're able to get full XY, and then you can actually see in a full environment and understand everything that's going on instead of a curtain that's in 2D, or depending on how you deploy those sensors. Accuracy, bar none, we offer centimeter accuracy. In fact, 3 centimeters to be exact. It's one of the most accurate sensors in the market right now. Field of view, you're able to do full 360, but not only are you able to do multiple, not only a 360, but you get that full angle to actually see a very large wide open area. So you get full 360 as it spins around. So we have the highest angular field of view in the market. Object classification, we're able to do that with our perception software called Cortex. So this is also very important as you start to learn more about LiDAR, is that not only do we manufacture the hardware, but we also do the perception in-house. So we hand that directly to Genetec to be able to do that directly through the plugins. So we do the object classification in-house, and you don't have to go to third-party companies in other countries to provide that middleware layer to understand what is an object in the field of view. Adverse weather, The only time we do fall behind in adverse weather is when it's about 50+ meters out in dense fog. But typically when you those type of environments, such as the case in when we deploy these on boats for man overboard applications, we fuse multiple sensors together so there's an overlap already, so that doesn't really become an issue. We see through rain, we see through snow. We've got these deployed in the Middle East in areas where there's sandstorms, so we see them we see very well in adverse weather. And we create our own light, so night is not an issue. We can see in pitch dark is not a problem. The one area that we will fall behind, as I mentioned earlier, is that we can't read sign, we can't read color. I can't tell you male or female. I can't tell you ethnicity, but this is where we work really well with cameras to be able to identify a person of interest or a bad actor in that regard when they breach a certain area in the field of view. So talking about perception, once again, perception is like our analytic to a camera. Perception is our analytic to LiDAR. 98% accuracy as far as counting, 250+ objects of simultaneous tracking within the sensor. We see so much more when you get into large open areas. 140 meters of continuous tracking range. And once again, centimeter level accuracy. Unlike other tech that's going to be in feet or and also meters, you're going to get 3-centimeter accuracy. So you'll be able to pinpoint exactly where potential intruder or person of interest is within the field of view. So just to bring that full circle, we have our mechanical sensor, 360, meant for wide open, large area coverages. We do have a solid state, but I'm not going to talk too much on it. It's typically meant for pinch point overhead applications for offices or counting as people enter and exit. And we have Cortex, which is our perception software that's only required for the mechanical sensor. So let's talk real quick on some solutions that we go after with our sensors. So airports, obviously, it's a great solution in that regard as far as tracking perimeter fence lines at airports, but we also use our sensor technology to monitor crowds as far as how dense the crowds are, queue management, getting people in and out from point A to B and get them on the plane. Smart cities, working with smart cities for intersections and automating the light process to bring down CO2 emissions to get cars from A to Z, pedestrian safety and collision avoidance. Retail is pretty straightforward, understanding consumer engagement and intent as far as shopper journey. Critical infrastructure is probably one of the main use cases and one of the most active applications for us is monitoring critical infrastructure from utilities, data centers, government facilities, enterprise locations, monitoring that fence line, keeping the bad people out, keeping the good people in. And corporate buildings, automating HVAC, utilities, understanding the crowds inside office spaces, and last but not least, public venues where we're doing stadiums, theme parks, amphitheaters, so on and so forth. So I've got some videos I'm going to show you before I kick it over to Cheryl. So left-hand side, you see our perception, and it's a top-down view. What you're seeing here is this little yellow square is an intrusion zone. What happened is earlier, this person of interest on the right-hand side, which is basically a thermal PTZ camera. We don't do this. The left-hand side is what we're doing. What you see is we're married directly with the camera, and we're providing centimeter accuracy pinpoint to where the location is of the perpetrator who basically breached this yellow square. Since he breached that yellow square, we're uniquely tracking him and him only. But if you want to identify another person of interest, it's just a matter of clicking on another object ID, or within Genetec Security Center, automating the PTZ to track that additional object, person of interest in the field of view to continuously track it. This shows you the automated PTZ tracking, but also how fluid and only tracking him uniquely in the field of view. So here's a sneak peek of what it looks like in Security Center. So this is an indoor environment. This is actually our offices in Sunnyvale. What you're seeing is there's a sensor in the hallway. This person right here is walking up and down the hallway. So what you're seeing is actually how we could potentially track an individual inside of a data center. Maybe it's a critical infrastructure. Maybe it's a highly secure area where you need to identify persons of interest that may be going into a certain area that requires high security. Now, what you'll see here is this then creates an alarm event when he enters the alarming event zone. Inside a security center, you can then go into the RSA task to be able to then search for any particular events. As you can see, as I enumerate, checkbox all the different task events in there. Once I generate the report, it'll pull up all the specific events that were generated based off the intrusion that was actually captured in Security Center. So as you can see here, you get all the different events, which you could then retrieve via archive if it was correlated with a video, or maybe other IoT devices. So you get that whole chain of custody to understand the who, what, where, and why inside a Security Center. This is critical infrastructure. So before I click play here, what I want you to see here is this is a massive open environment. And where you see this critical infrastructure environment, you can see for right here, these are vehicles, just so you understand how large this environment is right here. And we have 4 sensors deployed here. You see 1 here, 2, 3, and then 1 up here. We can eliminate a lot of the noise. So if you're getting false positives or false negatives, depending on what the environment is that you're trying to track, you can exclude areas of interest. So only look at areas that are actually what you're trying to capture. So as you can see right here, oh, let me go back one slide. So for instance, right here, so I click play, I'm going to eliminate all this zone right here. And we only care about 6 feet on each side of the fence line. So as I'm tracking individuals right here, we know exactly where they're at, tied into the map within Security Center. So this will give you a point of reference as to where the potential intrusion is, where the potential bad actor, good actors are in that regard. And you can continue the tracking all throughout, just from a frame of reference. Last but not least, this is me inside a big, large, open environment. Just so you can understand, this is actually a convention center. This is indoors. This particular convention center is quite massive, a couple football fields long. And what you're seeing here is doing 80+ meters of continuous detection, tracking, and classifications. It knows it's a person. I've breached the little zone right here. Because I breached that zone, it's only tracking me, regardless of the fact that there's another object in the field of view. It'll continue to track me regardless of the fact that I'm walking serpentine line form up and down the hallway. And then even if I start running, it'll still keep a visibility on me and continuously track me and me only. And it'll hone in onto where I'm at, down to the centimeters you can see in this regard. So that being said, I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to kick it over to Cheryl.
Perfect. Thank you, Gerald. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Wait 1 second. Oops. Minor technical difficulty. Oops. There we go. Do you see my screen? Just checking.
We do. Perfect.
All right, so thanks for the quick intro just now, Merlin and Gerald leading into my section here. But before I go into talking about RSA, some of you on the call might already know Genetec, but for those of you who don't know Genetec, I wanted to give you a quick introduction. So Genetec, we are a software company specializing in creating connected solutions in security, operations, as well as intelligence with our main product, Security Center, as you see here. Now, Security Center, it's really the heart of our solution where we bring together different sensors, devices, as well as systems like video management, access control, license plate recognition, all together on one platform to be managed together. Now, on top of that, Security Center can also be enhanced with specialized Genetec modules, as well as partner integrations that have specific that's been created to meet a specific customer need. And so, this is what we can bring into Security Center to enhance its features and functionalities. So for today specifically, as we talk about the topic of perimeter security, I wanted to talk more about one of our specialized module of Genetec called Security Center RSA, also known as Restricted Security Area Surveillance. And this module actually specializes in intrusion surveillance as well as monitoring. So what does RSA actually do? So RSA, what it does essentially is it brings together different intrusion detection technologies such as radar, LiDAR like Quanergy's, fence systems, and video analytics, all together to be managed together to provide you with this 360-degree intrusion detection and tracking management system, essentially. So, you guys being in the industry, you would know that critical infrastructure like airports, oil rigs, oil and gas facilities, they usually have really long fence lines and large perimeters to protect. And oftentimes they rely on multiple different standalone intrusion detection technologies to protect their site. And usually all of these systems, they're disconnected and they don't communicate with each other. And so, as you can imagine, by having this type of piecemeal approach towards protecting your site, you're often left with gaps or overlaps in the system. So when we talk about these two things, let's start with the gaps, right? Now, as you probably already know, different sensors, they have their own pros and cons. So if your site were to be relying on video analytics during times of bad weather, a misdetection would likely happen because it's really important for video analytics to have clear visibility of the target or intruder for it to function at its optimum rate. Now, this essentially, if it would cause a higher risk of intrusion because of this missed or false detection, and this could affect your site safety and security as well as reputation. Now, then, if we talk about, on the other hand, when we talk about the overlaps, when a site relies on multiple different intrusion detection systems to safeguard their premises, you can expect the number of alarms that occur at their site to also increase with that. So let me give you a kind of an idea of how that actually looks like. So in a typical security operations center, there's usually thousands of alarms on average happening in their system. So it kind of looks like this, pretty scary, right? And most often than not, these alarms, they're either false alarms or nuisance alarms triggered by all of these different intrusion detection systems that they're managing. And, because of that, the security operator that's monitoring this, they're usually desensitized over time because of this overload of alerts and information. And this ultimately affects their work efficiency, their productivity, as well as their ability to actually respond to incidents as quickly as we want them, right? So this was essentially what led us to, this challenge that they're facing, essentially was what led us to create RSA. We recognized that this was kind of a recurring issue that many of our existing customers face. So with RSA, what we intended to do was we want to be able to bring together all of these different standalone intrusion detection technologies under a single management system to provide you with one visualization pane to manage your security and operations. So just to quickly highlight in 3 main points, with RSA, firstly, you'll be able to geolocate your targets on a map and then track their activity throughout your restricted area in real time. Secondly, apart from the land intruders that are most common, RSA is capable of also handling air intrusions like drones. So essentially providing you with that 360-degree ability to protect your facility. And then finally, the multi-sensor association capability within RSA, we can help you reduce those numbers of false and nuisance alarms that's happening in your system. So allowing you to actually focus on what's most important and then, ultimately improving your overall your incident response time. Now, I know I've been talking quite a lot already, so how about I walk you through what RSA actually looks like in a video demonstration. So here we go. Let me play the video. All right, as you can see here, RSA will enable you to arm, disarm, or set zones to maintenance mode according to your needs. So for example, if you have construction going on in an area and you don't want to trigger an alarm, but you still want to keep tab of what's going on in your area, the maintenance mode shown in yellow right here will allow you to do just that. Next, you'll see this green line on the outside area of the restricted zone. This is the buffer zone where we can activate to allow you to pre-qualify potential threats before it reaches your protected zone. So when a target actually enters into the buffer zone, you can select the target icon to visually verify it and then assign a threat level to it, as seen here with the dog. We know that it is safe and it is not a threat, so we assign it as green, meaning that it's safe. So by changing this level, we kind of provide additional information for the system to alter behavior. So let's take a look at the bottom. Now, a police car is entering into the buffer zone. We know that they're not a threat, so we assign it as green, so indicating that it's safe. This way, when the police car actually enters into the zone right now, you'll see no alarms were triggered when it happened. However, when a suspicious target actually enters the buffer zone and we assign it as a threat here, once it actually touches the zone, as you see, it automatically turns red to trigger the alert to the operator. Now the operator can follow the movement of the intruder on a map in real time. You'll be able to see the speed, the direction, the altitude of the intruder displayed on the side panel. You will also be able to have a video feed of the associated PTZ cameras automatically following the intruder. So you have that continuous view seamlessly across the movement of the intruder on your site. Now, next, to support you with investigations, we've created a dedicated investigation task that will allow you to filter through incidents based on your different criteria and then extract the video feed and to provide you with a map view as well of the intrusion. So here we select the specific incident that we want. We can see the exact map view and the movement. We can also see the video display, and we can, of course, replay it at your own pace. So this, as you can imagine, can be very useful for investigations. One more thing I wanted to show you. So this is the heat map. It's going to also be available for you to analyze most vulnerable points at your site. So, where you'll be able to know where incidents are most likely to happen based on your historical data. This way you can make corrective measures to potentially improve your site's layout, or you can also take preventative measures according to that information. So that was kind of a quick summary of what RSA does and its capabilities. I also prepared another video demonstration for you that I want to take you through. And this is, to showcase how together with Quanergy LiDARs, we're able to help you handle your entire incident management process, all the way from detection to management, and then to reporting with the support of our collaborative decision-making tool, Mission Control. So I'm going to show you right now in our video. There you go. Now on the map, you will see 3 different zones that we've created to monitor for intrusions. Their statuses is also displayed on the left-hand side panel for easy monitoring. Now these zones, they're also covered by Quanergy LiDARs as displayed by these red icons in the map. And these sensors are of course managed by RSA. Now, as you see on the map, a potential intruder has entered the buffer zone and is showcased by this human gray icon. Now, by clicking on it, here we go, we're able to visually verify it to determine its threat level. So we see it moving closer and closer to the restricted zone, breaching it, turning it red. Now we assign this threat as hostile. Now, to manage this incident, this is where Mission Control comes into action. So by clicking on the alert, we're brought to this monitoring task where the associated live camera feeds are automatically pulled up and displayed. Now on the right, you'll notice a planned step-by-step SOP for you to follow in order to manage this incident. And I'm going to take you through that right now. So the first step is to determine the zone location of the intrusion that we know. Then the operator, they're prompted to send the closest security agent on the field to that specific location. And then once that's done, he's asked to notify the security management team, and then finally follow the arrest visually and confirm that the intruder has been neutralized. Now you see we can also include comments comments for you to look back later or to let someone else know. Now, once all of this is done, the security operator can close the case. Now, one more thing I wanted to show you. So this is also a very useful function for exporting a PDF file. So you can actually go into the monitoring task to extract a report of the incident, and this can be in a PDF format or HTML format, depending on your specific need. So now here we go to pull up that specific report that we've loaded. This report will be, I believe, in a PDF format as we want it here. So here you go. So right now, you'll be able to have a brief overview of the incident. You will have the map view of the location of the incident, the procedures that were taken, as well as the full activity log of the incident management process is also shown here. So this is actually going to be really useful for sharing information among all of the different teams that were involved in terms of resolving this incident. So what I wanted to emphasize here is our ability together with Quanergy to kind of help you manage and visualize your incident from start to finish, and this is really going to be really helpful for you to streamline your incident management process. And this strong integration of ours is really going to help you be able to save costs in the long run because of the efficiency. Gerald, can I hand it over to you to kind of walk our viewers or listeners, in terms of how we can help them make that cost savings and what they can expect.
Absolutely. If you could go to the next slide.
Sure
awesome.
thing.
So that was great, Cheryl. Thank you so much for showing us. I mean, that truly is the power of LiDAR with a fully unified platform. You could see what it's like to actually be able to capture events from start to finish, get that whole chain of custody from the actual intrusion all the way through to get the reports that you can provide a public safety investigation, so on and so forth. But let's talk about TCO so all of you on the line can understand, the cost savings and the way that this can be deployed for you that will be able to provide a tremendous amount of value versus existing IoT applications that you've gone after as far as intrusion and perimeter. So across the board, we've seen that there's been at minimum 40% cost savings when you're dealing with large open air environments as far as intrusion applications goes. What this basically relates to is minimum sensors required because the amount of coverage that you're able to do with one LiDAR sensor. Typically, when you're doing perimeter intrusion, outdoor environments, it's been commonly used to do thermal technologies, fence line, underground cable type of stuff, and it's very prone to issues, very problematic to false alarms, so on and so forth. But as you've seen with that earlier video I showed you with that critical infrastructure application, is also what Cheryl showed you, is that you need minimum count of sensors. The sensors see wide, open, large areas of coverage, but this also equates to savings as far as labor and infrastructure. So bringing down the amount of sensors as far as perimeter, you bring down the labor cost down and ultimately infrastructure. So it means also less maintenance and support required. Now, I will say, as far as any other solution out in the market, this is probably one of the deepest integrations that we've seen as far as what LiDAR can be done in the physical security market. So I'm super excited to be able to show everybody on the line what we've done together with Genetec. So with that being said, kick it over to the next slide.
All right, great presentation, folks. Thank you for that information. Let me remind everyone, if you have a question or comment, just click that Q&A button icon down at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure that we get your questions in front of our panelists. Very impressive technology from both companies and fantastic collaboration effort. Congratulations on that. We've got a couple of questions coming in, so keep typing away. If you have a question, we'd love to have it and would like to present it. So let me grab our first question here. Does the RSA support all the sensors of Quanergy?
Thanks for the question, Merlin. So yes, actually, because of our strong integration together, Genetec, we support all of Quanergy sensors, both the MSeries, so the mechanical series, as well as the S-series, so the solid state series. Is that, I believe that's the right wording for that, right, Gerald? And so, yeah, so with the S series, we were able to kind of, we were able to integrate it, and that's primarily used for people counting, for occupancy. And then the M series, which is which is the higher level version. I believe that's what we integrate with to do the perimeter security, the detection integration, and that can also be used for people counting and occupancy. So definitely.
Good. You may have touched on this during the presentation, but this question came up as well. How does RSA reduce false alarms?
Very good question. So yes, I mentioned just now during during the presentation, we're able to, how we reduce the false alarms. Firstly, because we're able to bring together all of these different sensors from the radars, LiDARs, video analytics, RSA has this ability to auto-fuse these targets. So oftentimes, if we think during, when these systems actually, cover an area, there's usually more than one sensor or system that's covering an area, as an example. And both of these sensors, for example, would normally create their own alert of a target that they've detected. So a radar and a LiDAR together, for example, would create two alerts. So within RSA, because we manage them together as a whole, we are able to recognize that this target is actually a single target and not two different targets. So essentially creating that auto fusion. So this essentially will help you reduce that false alarm. So that's kind of the first way when we look about, when we think about it. The second way RSA is able to help you reduce that false alarms is with the maintenance mode that I showed just now. It was a very quick glimpse, but so imagine if you were having construction in the airport in a specific site, and you don't want to create those false alarms happening in the area. You can essentially put that zone in maintenance mode. So we will still keep track of what's going on in the area, but we will not give you an alert indicating that there's been an intrusion. So this is kind of two particular ways that within RSA we're able to help you reduce that false alarms.
Fantastic. So we're gonna advance the slides so you have the contact information for both Cheryl and Gerald. We want to make sure you get a chance to either take a picture of that or do a screenshot. Questions are still coming in. You still have some time to send yours as well. So here's our next question. Gerald, I think this might be for you. How many zones can a Cortex manage?
This is a good question. So you can actually create pretty much infinite zones. It's just a matter of perspective when you actually see what the LiDAR sensor is capable of doing and zooming in. So some of the applications we've done for smart city, when you actually lay out a perception software, once again, it's that analytic component of our LiDAR sensor. We draw in multiple box zones to understand when vehicles enter and exit, to understand counts, to then automate the ITS systems in that regard. Vice versa, in the same regard, you can draw in multiple zones, various zones at that, within our perception software, which then gets translated directly into security's RSA plugin as different intrusion area zones that create the alarm events, such as we've talked through here today.
And kind of a follow-up to that, is Genetec able to import zones from the Cortex?
I believe that's a question for me. Yes, we are able to import zones from Cortex directly into Security Center. Now, I just wanted to add on top of that, there's no limits to the amount of zones that we can actually import into RSA. So that's going to give you greater granularity when managing all of your different systems. So yes, that's the answer is yes, we can import all of the RSA, the Cortex zones into RSA.
Great. Couple of more here. How do you classify objects in the RSA?
That's a really good question. And I believe Gerald can also add on to this, but we actually work hand in hand with our technology partners that provide us with that metadata of, what these targets are. And we actually showcase that within RSA. So when you see that human icon or that car icon or that dog icon that you saw just now, this information we actually pull from the sensors. So the LiDARs would have already given us that information. However, I do want to add that if, for example, we didn't receive that information, we also provide the ability to manually add or manually provide that classification within RSA. And I don't know, Gerald, if you wanted to add something to that question.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the nail. So our perception software actually analyzes the environment to look for specific objects, people, vehicles, and unclassified objects. Could be in the form of animals or foliage or stuff like that that we can eliminate as far as noise or potential alarm events. So absolutely, I think you did a great job there.
Good. So here's one more question on, is this solution a subscription service? Is it subscription based?
Yeah, so our solution as far as hardware and software goes, obviously the hardware is one time, you procure the hardware, but then the perception side can either be purchased perpetual or on a yearly subscription. Cheryl, from your side, I'll let you answer from there.
Yes, so ours will be a subscription base, and I can provide you with additional information. I'll get your contact information after to provide you with the exact details in terms of how it works.
Fantastic. It looks like we have one last question. What kind of computer is required to do this?
Yeah, so I'll hit on the perception / Quanergy side. So as I mentioned earlier on one of the slides, unlike other analytics and other applications are very GPU dependent, they require heavy compute to be able to analyze the environment. We're more so based on a CPU architecture. So more cost savings when actually architecting a solution, but ultimately you could do about 7 sensors on an i7. We typically say about a core and a half per sensor to be able to deploy that. But as I alluded to earlier, you can scale this horizontally, add additional compute, add additional sensors. You can virtualize this. So it really comes down to how big of a deployment that you want to do. As you can see, there's cost savings realized across the board.
And we have one last question. It looks like, is it possible to use multiple Cortex on the same system?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's the beautiful thing about our cooperation with Genetec in this regard, is that you can unify multiple sites, multiple locations, multiple regions, as long as they're interconnected via the network into Security Center. You're going to have various Cortex applications running various sensors at the edge or different locations, and all pushing information directly in a Security Center to be able to do that event action workflow where you get the reporting, you get the alarms, you get the bookmarking, or whatever it is that you create as far as a macro-like event through mission control or through Security Center's standard platform.
Fantastic. Gerald, Cheryl, thank you for providing your expertise today. Contact information is on the screen. Make sure you reach out to these two individuals. We appreciate Quanergy and Genetec's support of ESX and ESA, and we hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your day. Don't forget, you'll get an email of this recording, and we'll see you on the next ESX webinar. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.